Good afternoon. This is Chuck Ridgway, the Automation Technology Manager here at Horner. Today I think we have an important topic, especially if you're an OEM, because today we're going to talk about Cscape security. Again, it can have a big impact on OEMs that are looking to protect their intellectual property. So joining me again today, Mr. Casey Gardner. How you doing today, Casey?
Hey, not too bad. How's it going, Chuck?
It's going great. How was your holiday weekend?
It was good. It was a nice extended stay for sure, but it's no good weather and everything.
Absolutely.
So
you can't ask for more than that. So on the topic of security, one of the functions that you perform at Horner as our lead sales application engineer is that you work with new OEMs all the time, helping them adapt their programs to get used to using the Horner OCS to fully take advantage of its capabilities. So again, you're working with new OEMs all the time. Now, is security something that comes up right away? Is that something they kind of save till the end, or what is the normal situation with that?
I'd say you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's usually very early on where they kind of gauge some of our security measures in terms of actually developing the program from scratch, or it could be towards the very end of the process, or sometimes even post-production, where they're like, oh man, we probably need to add some security to our system, or after the fact where they start deploying it and then somebody's like, oh, I can just load this without a password. And they're like, oh yeah, we should probably do something about that. So it's definitely been a topic. I've seen an uptick here in the last probably 6 to 12 months as well, where a lot more customers are asking about security features in terms of being able to protect their intellectual rights, for sure.
Absolutely. So, and again, just to be clear to our users, what we're really talking about is protecting the application in the OCS. We're not necessarily talking about network security and those sorts of things. It's all really about protecting the intellectual property of the OEM so that the people using their machines only have the level of access to the program that they want them to have, whether that's no access at all or, full access and anywhere in between. So once again, today Casey will be manning the chat. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to chat those in, whether you're talking Big Marker or whether on YouTube. Casey will be monitoring things. If he can answer it right away, he'll do that. Otherwise, he'll probably save it till the end when I bring him back in after the presentation. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Once again, it's all about Cscape security and protecting your intellectual property, a really important topic for an OEM. Really, we don't have a whole lot of slides to talk about early on today. We've got a few. We're going to talk about what is Cscape security and what can it do. In the introduction portion of our program, we're going to review the initial setup requirements, what you need to do step by step to set up security. We're going to talk about a feature that Cscape supports called OEM sections. And I think for OEMs, I think they'll find it rather useful, especially in those cases when they do want to provide at least some access to the program to their users. And then of course we're going to spend a lot of time on demonstrations today, reviewing again how to set things up, different scenarios, different security scenarios, from locking it all down to providing some limited access. All right, so Cscape security, what is it and what can it do? Well, Cscape security is a feature within Cscape that protects the OCS application. So once again, we're not talking about network-based security or those sorts of things. We're talking about the ability for an OEM to protect the program, which contains their intellectual property, whether it's residing in the OCS itself or whether it's residing in a Cscape file that may end up in unauthorized folks' hands. This Cscape security feature absolutely protects the program not only when it happens to be in Cscape, but also, as I just mentioned, within the hardware as well. And then one of the great things about Cscape's specific security capabilities is that it's completely tailorable to the OEM requirements. So you can lock it all down, or you can provide a fair amount of access to your users, and you can pretty much decide on a feature by feature basis what it is you want to allow your users to be able to do. Okay, so when you're going through the initial setup of Cscape security, it's accessed from the tools menu. So generally, it'll be a scenario where your program is pretty much developed, or at least it's to the point where it's not just on one person's hard drive anymore, and you want to start adding security to it so that as more copies of it get around, they're secured. So to start off that process, the designer will go to the Tools menu and select the Security section within Tools, and specifically, they will press Change Passwords. The first thing that they'll need to do is really establish an administrator level password. Now today, all passwords are numeric, and they can be up to 6 digits long. Now we certainly have contemplating adding alphanumeric capability to the password. We haven't done that yet, but at this stage the password is digits from 0 to 999999, and there absolutely are functions within Cscape to prevent someone from setting up an auto bot for entering in a whole sequence of passwords sequentially. So that is absolutely taken care of within Cscape, so don't worry about that. Anyway, once an administrator level password is established, then the user simply presses, or the engineer presses the setup button, and then what happens is a whole list of functions that can be protected are presented to the system designer. Okay, and at this stage, they simply check those functions that they want to protect. So for the functions that they don't care about protecting, they don't have to check those. For the things they want to protect, they can check those. If they want to protect everything, they can check every box. So again, for any functions that don't need protection, you can leave them open. For any functions that do need protection, you simply check the checkbox. So at the administrative level, it's all about setting the features that you want to protect. And these features are fairly self-explanatory. Opening the program, verifying the program, downloading the program, making changes to the program, saving it, uploading it from the controller. There's a feature called OEM ladder that we're going to talk about a little bit later, but the ability to determine what sections are OEM protected and which ones aren't, that's another thing that you can decide if you want to activate or not. There's a remote terminal function available for the XLE product. It's not available in our more advanced color graphics products. You can decide whether you want the user to be able to change the controller from run to stop to do I/O, for instance. You can decide whether they should have the ability to change the node number to perform online programming. All those functions are individually protectable from Cscape security. So again, the first step is establish an administrator level password and then determine which of these features and functions you want protected. Now once that has happened and you've set up an administrative level of security, now as an OEM you can decide if you need additional levels of security or not for your end users. And you can set up to 3 levels of that security. Now each level can be given a convenient name. You can see the one on the screen there I've called maintenance, but other ones could include supervisor, engineer, whatever you want to call it would be fine. Again, it's just there for convenience purposes. Also, when you add that name to that level that you're creating, that additional level beyond the administrator level, you're assigning it a password, again a numeric password up to 6 digits long, and then you're going to click into the setup for that particular password level. And in the case of the other levels, not the administrative level, in the case of the other levels, you're checking the checkbox for the things that you want to allow that level to do. So on the administrative level, it's all about what features am I protecting. On the other 3 levels, it's all about what features am I allowing. Okay, so that's one little subtlety that you should be aware of. And of course, every time a user is attempting to access one of the functions that are protected, then they're going to have to enter in a password to log in at that level. So that's effectively how that works. Okay, so now that we've kind of given just a quick run through of what Cscape security is, how you set it up, it's really quite straightforward. Let's go ahead and demonstrate that and show you how to set that all up. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and fire up Cscape here. And what I have here is I have a program that I've developed, and I'm at this stage of the demonstration, I'm kind of sitting in the shoes, if you will, of the OEM, and we've got my device here, which is called an epoxymatic. So I've developed my program. I'm getting closer to the deployment stage, and I want to make sure I've added appropriate security to protect my intellectual property. So I've got my program here. If we take a quick look at that, we can see that we have 3 different sections of code. We have a main section, we have a mix section, and we have a production data section. These are just sections of code that I've organized. All right. You'll see that this is also a XL4 program. Okay, so I've got the XL4 here that's running the epoxymatic product. So let's go ahead and start the process of setting up security. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the Tools menu. Under Security, I will select Change Passwords. All right, and what I have is I have that main dialog box that pops up. And as I mentioned, the first step really is to establish an administrative level password. And I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'm going to go ahead and hit the View Passwords button so I can see what I'm typing here, because it's important that I get that right, of course. All right, there we go. Really sophisticated password I've got here. So I've established the password. Now I need to go into Setup and determine what functions I actually want to protect. And we see how they're organized between the ones on the left that are all related to Cscape when it's running on the computer, although they do offer some protection on the unit itself as well. And then on the right, those are some of the other functions that we could choose to protect if we want. Things like putting the unit in and out of run mode, setting the CAN ID, setting some CScan parameters, those sorts of things. Okay, but for now, for my demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and lock everything down on the left side, and I'll just leave these open here on the right side. So at this stage, if all I'm interested in is locking everything down completely, then for all intents and purposes, I'm done with my Cscape setup. Okay, because with this example, I'm really not going to allow the user of my machine any access whatsoever to the Cscape program. Now, for this to take effect, of course, I'm going to have to download this to the controller. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, hit the download button here. Oh, looks like I'm downloading into a program that already, oh no, I remember what's going on. So because I have just configured that the save function is a password protected function, I just performed my first save after setting up security. Okay, so that's what's going on here. Basically, the program now in Cscape says, hey, if you want to do a save function, you need to, a save or a download function for that matter, you're going to need to enter in your password. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'll enter in the password, the administrative level password, say OK. And it tells me that a login using the administrator password was made, and it puts a timestamp on it. Okay, and this is a live demo, as you can see. All right, so now that I've done that, it's giving me the option to go ahead and do the download. And remember, if I'm not only going to protect the program, but also protect the unit itself, then I'm going to have to make sure that I download this program into the OCS that has these Cscape, or that has these security changes implemented. Of course, it took a few seconds for Cscape to figure out what has changed. It's done that. It's downloaded the program. Okay, so now we've done that. So at this stage, let's say that I'm a user, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and log out here. So let me go ahead and make sure I've saved this program. All right, I've done that. I'm going to go ahead and just close Cscape. I'm going to open it up again. Now when I open it up again, this time I'm going to be sitting in the shoes, if you will, or standing in the shoes more appropriately, of a user. So at this stage, I am no longer the OEM, but I'm the user. And let's say somehow the user got a hold of a copy of the program, whether it was through an email or whatever the case may be, and they wanted to open the program. Well, let me go ahead and attempt to open it here, and let's see what happens. Well, sure enough, even if the end user manages to somehow get a hold of the CSP program, the CSP file, then they still have to know the password in order to be able to open the program. And as I am standing in the shoes of the end user, I don't know that password, so all I can do is cancel. It tells me I have insufficient security to open the document, and I'm kind of stuck. But if I'm a clever end user, and maybe I'm familiar with, or I do some research and I realize, hey, this is based on a Horner OCS, I'm going to go ahead and just open up a blank file in Cscape. I can figure out what the IP address is of this controller based on maybe snooping the network. Let's go ahead and upload the program from it. You know, I've established a connection. Fantastic. Let's go ahead and upload the program. I hit the upload button, says ID 253, that's fine. I hit OK again. I'm stymied once again because of the fact that I don't have access to the program. Okay, so once again, the Cscape security feature has successfully prevented an unauthorized user from opening the program or uploading the program. So that helps tremendously, obviously, with protecting the intellectual property that's contained in the program. So that is kind of the first look at setting up security and effectively locking everything down. Okay. However, what if we want to be able to allow limited access of some kind? How can we set that up? Well, let's take a look at that next and go back to Cscape, and I can show you how you can set up limited access if that's what you're after. I don't have my program opened up yet here. I'm going to go ahead and close this untitled failed attempt at pirating the OEM's program. I'll go ahead and open the program here. All right. This time I'm going to open it up as the administrator. Oops, I need to use the right keyboard here. Okay. All right, so it tells me a login using the administrator password was made. Okay, so now we've got, once again, as the administrator, as the system designer, I've opened up my program. Now, let's say, for example, that what I want to accomplish for my user is I want to give them the ability to update the program from the memory card if I send him a new program. Okay, and that's what I want to allow him to do. I don't want to allow him to do anything else. I pretty much just want to be able to send him a PGM file that's password protected that he can then download into the controller if I have an update I want him to make in the field. Okay, so I'm going to go back into Tools, Security, Change Passwords. Okay, now one thing I guess I could do is I could go back into the administrative level of password protection, and I suppose I could just uncheck this here. All right, so that would be one way of doing that. I could uncheck the download and just make downloads unprotected. So that would be an option for sure. But what I would want to do in this case is I want to create a new level of security, or a new user level, and I'm going to call this maintenance. Okay. So I'm going to give it a name. All right. Next, I'm going to assign a password to it because every user level has to have a unique password. And then I'm going to hit the setup button, and I'm going to determine what am I going to allow this particular user level to do. And in this case, I'm saying I'm just going to allow them to be able to download, and that's all. Okay. Now, these functions over here are not protected in general. So they can do these, of course, because these functions aren't protected. But these are just things that you would do from the keyboard, like start and stop the controller, that sort of thing. Okay, so I hit OK. All right, so I've added this level of security. And once again, it's important that I save this file and that I download it into my controller so that this level of security will take effect. Okay, so we'll go ahead and Cscape's figuring out what has changed. It's determining, okay, yes, it's the security that's changed. I need to download new security information to the controller. And then once it's completed that, all right, then we're all set. Okay, so at this stage, let's say if you're taking a look at that XL4 on the right there, let's say that at this stage, I have sent a new copy of my Epoxymatic program to my maintenance guy along with a password, and I've said, hey, download this program into your Epoxymatic, and that will fix this issue that you've reported to me that you would like to have corrected. Okay, so as the end user, I'm now going into the system menu. I've already put the updated program file on removable media and put it in the unit. So I go to removable media, hit enter. I find the program file, I hit enter. It asks if I'm sure I want to load the application. I say okay, and immediately it's asking me for the password. Okay, so let me go ahead, type in the password as the maintenance guy. All right, and as you can see, no problem whatsoever. I'm able to go ahead and update the program. Fantastic. So that's one illustration of adding some level of access to an end user so that they can do more with your machine than having it completely locked down. Okay, next I want to talk about the OEM sections of code that an OEM can set up, okay, so that if they want to provide some level of visualization of the program to their customer, they can, but they can also hide certain sections of the code so that anything that is proprietary or any secret sauce can be hidden from the user. Okay, so that effectively is what an OEM section is. It's the ability within Cscape Security's feature for an OEM to mark different sections of code. There can be multiple sections, and they can say, hey, this is what I'm considering a proprietary OEM section of code, and I'm going to go ahead and identify it here so that anybody who's authorized to see the program but not necessarily authorized to view the OEM section would have the ability to see the program, but they can't see all my secrets. Okay, so that is what an OEM section is in regards to Cscape Security. All right, let's head back again to Cscape. All right, and let's go ahead and set up an OEM section. So let's say now in my new scenario, my last scenario was, hey, I'm going to go ahead and give my customer the ability to do a download of the program from the memory card, but I'm not going to allow them to do anything else. Now what's going to happen in this scenario is I'm going to allow the customer to open the program, but to only see the parts of the program that I want them to. So I'm going to make the proprietary parts protected through the OEM section feature. All right, so we're back in Cscape, as you can see here, and we're going to go back into the security section. Now, what we're going to do in the security section is we're not going to change anything in regards to this checkbox here for OEM ladder. What that checkbox does is that protects the ability for someone to create OEM ladder sections, or it protects that as a feature. So really what we're going to do is we're going to go back into the maintenance section, and we're going to add capability to the maintenance guy, because if he's going to be able to view the program, even if he can't see some sections of it, he has to have the ability to open it. Okay, so we're going to enable the open functionality for this password level or this user level, so that they do have the ability to actually open the program. We don't have to do anything specific for the OEM section here. Okay, so I've made that change. Now, to actually identify OEM sections, we go into the view area and we make sure that the OEM section checkmark is active. So I've checked it here and gone back, and you can see the OEM section's checkmark is active. So what does that do for us? Well, you'll see here in a second. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I have three different sections of logic here. I have main, I have mix, and I have production data. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that my secret sauce is contained in these four particular rungs, and I want to hide those or identify those as an OEM section. So once I have made sure that under the view menu, that my OEM section's checkmark is active, every time I right click in the power bar here, I have the option to start an OEM section, And when I go to the end of where I want to mark the end of the section, I can right-click again and hit End OEM Section. Got it. Okay, so now I've identified this is an OEM section of code in my logic. All right, very good. Now I'm going to go ahead and perform a save. Again, I'm still acting as the administrator. I'm still the system designer here. I'm going to go ahead and download these changes to the controller, okay, because of course they need to take effect. Okay, so let's go ahead and perform that download. Now in this case, the logic is downloading because these markers that I put in to identify the OEM section, those are contained in the logic, so therefore it requires a change to the logic. So that's why it went ahead and did more of a download than just a simple security change. Okay, so that's complete. We're now done there. Now I'm going to go ahead and let's get rid of our controller here briefly. So I've made the save, I've made the download. I'm going to go ahead once more, close Cscape down, and now I'm going to stand in the shoes of the maintenance guy who has new capability now to be able to not only load a new program from a memory card, but also to open up the program and potentially see how the program's written, at least to a certain extent, and also maybe to do some debugging. Okay, so it's still asking for a password when I go to open the program. I'm going to type in the maintenance guy's password. Oops, I better select it here. Okay, there's my password, just the 3-digit maintenance guy password. Hit OK. A login using the maintenance password was made with the timestamp, and shortly the program will open and I will have the ability to see what's going on here. So we still have these 3 sections: main, mix, and production data. I can see main, I can see production data. When I look at mix, part of it is hidden as a permanently locked OEM section. Okay, I can tell that there's 4 rungs here, but I can't really tell anything else. Okay, and if I want to go into debug mode, as you can see down here, I am connected. If I want to go into debug mode, I can. Okay, and now if I want to go ahead and debug the program as the maintenance guy, I can't really get in there and change anything because I wasn't allowed to do that. I was really only allowed to open, to download, and that was, for all intents and purposes, that's it. Okay, so here's another example of how you can open up at least a little bit functionality to the end user if you're an OEM, if that's what you want to do. Let's go back to the slides, and I think that pretty much wraps up my part of the presentation for today, and I'm going to go ahead and bring Casey back in. Okay, Casey, so that was a quick run through on the security along with demonstrations. Did we have any questions that came in or anything you thought of that maybe we missed that we should cover at this stage?
I didn't see any questions. I may have missed it, but did we cover the logic source as well?
What do you mean by the logic source?
The enable, disable the logic source to prevent uploading?
Oh, okay. We did not. So that is a good point. So there's another feature in Cscape. It's not directly related to security, where you can effectively eliminate the ability completely for the program ever to be uploaded from the controller. It just won't be capable by an administrator or by anybody else. So that is definitely a feature that some OEMs who absolutely don't want the ability to ever upload a program from that unit, that is something they may want to take advantage of. The downside of that, of course, is that if you do that, even you as an administrator have no way of uploading that program. And more than once we've gotten calls from OEMs saying, I've got a 7-year-old machine, we've not only, we know our password, but we set up the unit where we couldn't upload. What do we do? And there is no workaround for that, for sure. So if you do decide to disable uploads altogether, then be aware that nobody will be able to upload it, period, if you do that. Anything else you want to mention?
We got one question towards the end there.
Okay.
So someone's asking, are the logins logged somewhere within probably firmware or system registers?
I believe they are, yes. But that would probably be a good follow-up question for me to verify, just to verify that they are and verify where where they're actually logged. But yeah, that's a good question, and that's one we should probably follow up on. I don't have the answer off the top of my head.
Alrighty, I think other than, let's see, we may have gotten one more, it looks
Okay.
like.
All right.
Is there any OEM security available for IEC?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there's right. So the security is available regardless of what language that you're using. In this case, I showed an advanced ladder with tags example. But yeah, security is available regardless of the language that you select, for sure.
Sounds good. I think that just about covers it.
All right, fantastic. So we will follow up, and we'll put in the notes for those of you watching on YouTube, or those of you who want to reference this material later on YouTube if you're not watching live right now. We will put in the notes the answer to that question that we're following up on. Is there a log somewhere that determines or that identifies when various security levels logged in from a Cscape security standpoint? One more comment I do want to make. There's also user level security that can be set up in Cscape, but that's all about the HMI functionality in the unit. So in the XL series products, XL4 on up, for instance, X5, other products, you have the ability to set user level security, and that will impact what different users can do when it comes to pressing objects that have an action on the screen. So if you've got a start button or a set point for a PID loop, for instance, and you want to protect those so that only certain level of users can actually use that at runtime on the machine, then that's called user level security. And the XL4 on up and the X5 all support that. So that's a different deal. And absolutely, for user level security at runtime, there is a detailed log that logs all of those things, and that's logged in the form of a CSV file. But in terms of Cscape level security, that we're going to have to follow up on.
I was going to say, sounds like another video's worth of content.
Oh, good Lord. Okay, sounds good. Okay, so that reminds me, we need to take a look at what's coming up. And again, every Tuesday at 2 o'clock, you'll find a new live stream available. And you can always watch those on replay, of course, if you're not able to watch the content that week. Here's the schedule for July. We've just covered Cscape security. You can see the schedule for the rest of the month, again, every Tuesday at 2. And our next topic is going to be hands-on, user-defined function block in Cscape Advanced Ladder Logic. So once again, we're going to be spending some time with the variable-based version of Cscape Advanced Ladder Logic, talking about a really cool feature, user-defined function blocks, that's also available with our IEC option for logic as well. But next week it's going to be all about the advanced ladder. Okay, also don't forget, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. That way you'll receive notifications, especially if you check that bell, right? That we've got new videos available, whether they're live streams, whether they are recordings or repeats of the live streams, or whether there are other videos that we release. We release other videos as well. Okay, so once again, thanks for joining us. I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday, and everybody stay safe out there. Thank you.